Hello, everybody, and welcome to the November 6th edition of the Go With The Flow podcast. I'm Nick Phillips, joined as always by my line mates Kevin Bartman.
What's going on?
And Dan Maratz.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Well, guys, finally the saga is over with a little bit of a twist with Kyle Turris also being involved in a three-way trade, which you don't see a whole lot of in sports, let alone hockey. But we've got a major blockbuster that just went down last night. So as we're talking now earlier this evening, Matt Duchene, the saga is finally over. Joe Sakic finally deals the guy. They held on to him through the draft in Chicago. Patience seemed to have paid off for the Avs as they got an incredible haul with a slew of prospects and picks. Ottawa gets a coveted center, a good old Canadian boy up there who they're going to hope is going to be that consistent 70-point center. They're near the top of the standings. But Nashville gives up a defenseman, and I think Kevin will want to touch on this. He's been excited and hoping for this Duchene trade for a while, calling Sakic stingy for all this time, but it seems like Sakic was probably wise to have that patience. But Nashville gives up a defensive prospect who was obviously blocked by their top four. There of Yossi, Subban, Ekholm, and Ellis, and a second-round pick, and they got a top six center signed for $6 million over 6 years. Nice for Nashville playing in Tennessee to stay with no state income tax. So they got Kyle Turris probably to sign a little bit less than market value. Same thing with Nick Bonino. So Nashville's obviously going for it. Their center depth is ridiculous right now. They've got Johansson. They've got Turris now, and then their bottom six centers are Nick Bonino, who's fresh off 2 Stanley Cups, and Calle Jarnkrok. So we can look at this and come at it from multiple different angles. Colorado gets a haul. Ottawa gives up a lot, and we'll see how much they really upgraded their center position. And Nashville's obviously making themselves an even bigger threat in the West, coming off their Stanley Cup appearance. So, Kevin, let's let you have the honor here because we know you've been excited about this one for a while.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I'm still pretty undecided or like neutral on this trade. I think I got to let it digest a little bit. Maybe I'll have a more detailed opinion like in the coming days. But you mentioned that Sakic, benefited from his patience. I don't really know about that because you have to believe at the deadline, I feel like he had some much better offers. He probably got offered a lot of NHL players, or not a lot, but like rather than a haul of draft picks and prospects, there's probably some NHL ready players. So either way, it's still a really good haul. What did you say? He got like 6 pieces out of that trade. So yeah, Sakic, I don't know if he's off my shit list for sure. He's still kind of a douche just for, giving us blue balls all this time. But yeah, it's definitely going to help him in the future. Duchene, he's not going to win them a Stanley Cup. So it's, Sakic decided that he's finally going to blow it up and start over, rebuild. So good on him.
Yeah, I like it. I like it for Duchene. It's a fresh start for Duchene. He's finally, out of there and heading to Ottawa, and he'll definitely bolster that roster. And then Turris to Nashville. Nick, you kind of touched on it. Nashville, as we know, is extremely dangerous and extremely good, with their playoff run they had last year and whatnot. And it just adds another scoring threat. And I think it really helps Nashville, especially considering they lost both Neal and Fisher, one to Vegas and one to retirement, obviously. So getting Turris sort of, can counter that in a way, or, they kind of gain a skilled player back. So, just kind of looking at it face value in terms of just Duchene and Turris kind of moving, I'd say both Ottawa, and Nashville benefit from that. And then obviously the draft picks and whatnot for Colorado, that, rebuild, help them out. So,
yeah, I think Duchene is obviously the headliner in this trade, but I'm the most interested in this deal from Nashville's perspective. You don't give up a single piece off an already really good NHL roster, and you get a top six center signed long-term right away off this trade. It's not going to be a distraction going into the summer. Is this guy a rental? Is he going to stick around? Obviously, they don't make the trade if that's the case, but Nashville was already looking really good, and now they're even that much better. And they don't, like I said before, they don't give up a single piece off the NHL roster. So Hoyle's kind of going all in. You know, Nashville had been, man, Nashville's a team that hadn't had any good centers for just so long, and it was all about defense and hoping Rene could, stonewall the other team back there. And now all of a sudden, Nashville arguably is like the best center depth in the league. And like I said before, with Johansson and Turris and Bonino and Yarncroc, like all those guys are perfectly slated where they are. Johansson's the number one center. Turris is a top six center. Nick Bonino is a perfect third line center. He's like the ideal third line center. And Yarncroc is made for the fourth line. So not only are all their centers good, they're playing where they should be. And, you know, when you were looking at these trades, and Nashville had been tied to Duchene before, and they've been linked to Turris, and there was some talk that, you know, you might have to give up, you know, one of those top 4D, and, you know, at some point to get, if they really want to get another big center like a Duchene or a Turris or something. And man, they kept that top four intact, and they have all that center depth. I mean, I'm really just looking at this from Nashville's perspective of, damn, this is a really good team. And Ottawa, you know, you give up a first-round pick, and it's top 10 protected and all that stuff. And, you know, you give up, you know, some prospects, and you give up, Turris. You know, I don't know how much they really made themselves better. Obviously, they decided they didn't want to pay Turris, and they rather wanted to pay Duchene, and that's their prerogative. But, you know, if I'm Ottawa, you know, I probably want to have two dynamite centers instead of one. But with, I think Phaneuf might be coming off the books, so I don't really understand. I'm also curious why they really weren't interested in keeping him. I mean, it's $6 million a year, and I touched on the state income tax thing. Maybe Nashville got him for a slight discount because of the lack of, you know, taxing he's going to get on that contract. But I'm also interested why Ottawa might not have kept him. So pretty interesting deal all around, I think.
Yeah, and you mentioned that this could be like a sort of a Nashville going all in. I also think it's Ottawa's going all in because, you know, they just got a slight upgrade in center. I don't know. Duchene's definitely an upgrade over Kyle Turris, but another thing, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he fits in to Ottawa's system, you know, because I feel like Duchene's just kind of a faster guy and likes, you know, just play at a high pace. And Ottawa, I feel like, is more of, you know, keep it in the zone, you know, slow pace.
Guy Boucher, man.
Yeah. James Bond villain. So he'll undoubtedly make him better. And also, it's worth noting that Duchene's just going to have a lot more, you know, a lot better players around him. So, you know, he can rely on his pure skill, and then he has a lot of help around him now. So, yeah, like you said, Nick, we should be seeing consistent, you know, 70, 75-point seasons out of him now.
You're on mute.
So do we want to pause?
Might as well now.
Where are we at? Where are we at?
8 minutes, 18 seconds.
Got it down?
1 sec. Yeah.
Kevin, do you want to talk about how that division's good now?
From
earlier? You had mentioned that?
I guess, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Ottawa was already good to begin with, but like, yeah, it makes it that much more competitive.
All right. I'll just say, I'll just jump in and be like, oh yeah, and how good's that division now? And I don't know. Or I don't know. I feel like he's gonna get a lot of power play time too, and like with Carlson and shit, like that's gonna be sick.
Yeah.
All right. I'll throw that out there. All right, Dan, ready? Yeah, he's ready. All right, I'm gonna toss it to Kevin, and then all right, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, and going off that, Kevin, if you're looking at that division in the Atlantic just gets that much better, don't you think? And talking about the style of play there, I feel like Duchene's going to get a lot of power play time, and obviously you've got world class Erik Karlsson quarterbacking that thing, and you know, the guys like that are still able to freewheel in that system. I feel like they let Karlsson kind of be his own animal, and Boucher was quoted as saying, you know, we let that guy do whatever he wants in practice. He's like the only guy I've ever let do that kind of stuff in practice. I feel like when you make a trade like this, they're going to try to let Duchene play to his strength. So I'm expecting him to have an uptick in production for sure. And I think Ottawa makes that trade expecting that. And I remember when we were talking to Chief, a few episodes ago, and we were talking about the possibility of Duchene getting traded, and he was right in the fact that it's really rare that a guy of his ilk is ever available via trade. So I commend Ottawa for kind of going for it here. They're in an interesting spot where they're, I believe, second right now in the division. So really interesting timing to make the trade, but they definitely think it's an upgrade. It's just funny, with Ottawa being so close to the Stanley Cup final last year. They're a Chris Kunin's OT goal away from in Game 7 away from being in the Stanley Cup, and Turris was an integral part of that team last year. And now he's already gone. Over money and who knows what. So pretty interesting to see the quick turnaround, and we'll see if it pays dividends for him.
Yeah, I'm just excited. I was just going to say I was excited, like you mentioned, with the power play with Karlsson and whatnot. It's going to be a new dynamic, I guess you could say, that we'll see. I'm sure we'll see a couple 2-on-1s with them too, because Karlsson likes to carry the puck. But just with that division, you got Tampa Bay and Toronto obviously are in the playoff positions right now. Those are just really skilled, fast teams. So for Ottawa to get a guy like Duchene, I think that's just really going to help kind of keep up that pace. Even though their culture obviously is more on the defensive end of things, just now having Duchene with them, I think it's really going to help them and just be beneficial, especially against those teams like Tampa Bay and Toronto.
Yeah, you guys pretty much covered everything I was going to say, especially because, like you said, Nick, now maybe we can see, more ways that Duchene could be utilized, in ways that we didn't necessarily see him used in Colorado, especially like you said, like a 3-on-3 overtime where you got, I don't know, like Duchene, Karlsson, and Mike Hoffman or something. Like, that's just ridiculous. That's going to be really fun to watch.
Going back to Nashville too, one thing I was thinking about after this trade was made, and you thinking of Kyle Turris and his skill set too, being, a decent two-way guy, but, also a damn good playmaker in the offensive zone. Imagine right now if Nashville had protected James Neal rather than Yarncroke, because now Yarncroke is kind of a luxury to have as a fourth-line center, and you could have had, James Neal being fed the puck by either Johansson or Turris, and Nashville's a team that had been starving for offense for a long time, and they finally got some after they made that, obviously that blockbuster Seth Jones for Ryan Johansson trade, and obviously made Johansson the highest paid player in team history, I believe, this past offseason with that extension, 8x8, I believe it was. So pretty interesting if Nashville had been able to keep James Neal. I mean, you're looking at a great team right now, but they would have been dynamite based on the way James Neal seems to have been resurged again after getting traded to Vegas and stuff.
Yeah, his play, on a side note, in Vegas is just pretty ridiculous. How he's kind of, he's basically just made himself a leader of that team. Obviously not to. It's interesting. It's good to see him. Kind of. What's the word I'm trying? I guess leading by example, I guess you could say, with that group. He's just been doing really well for them. So, but yeah, a team with Turris and Neal and all the rest of them, that would have been. I mean, I'm already scared enough of Nashville as it is, and now they've got Turris too. So that's just, and as we know, the Hawks have been kind of struggling a little bit lately. They got shut out tonight. Obviously, it's, as a Hawks fan, it's like, oh shit, Nashville just got even, that much harder to beat. So.
Yeah, speaking of Vegas, go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, another thing I forgot about earlier is that Nashville's got to be super excited now because, they didn't have Ryan Johansson in the final last year, and then they just add another center. So they're probably like, let's get to the final again because they got to be super amped.
Yeah, they're certainly poised, I think, to go on another deep run this spring. And we'll see what happens with the seeding and all that stuff. Obviously, Winnipeg's off to a nice start. Dallas is a pretty good team. I think you're going to see Colorado is off to a surprisingly okay start, but they're probably going to regress now that Duchene's gone. They're probably going to implement some kids into the lineup and stuff. So, with St. Louis playing so well, we'll see how the seeding shakes out. But, Nashville looking like a team that might wind up having some home ice in the first round, and who knows what happens after that. So obviously that's a tough barn to play in. So yeah, Nashville fans have got to be excited about the ownership's newfound commitment to spending money, Hoyle's newfound commitment to being aggressive with the trades. I mean, the Johansson for Seth Jones trade and signing Turris and giving Johansson all that money, all those things, and the Weber for Subban trade. I mean, it's crazy that this is the same, Dave Hoyle from, 6-7 years ago, because you never thought you would have seen this. But I'm just curious. I wonder how much of it is Laviolette's influence and, not having Lavi in there instead of Trotz, and having Laviolette kind of let these guys play to their strengths. And he kind of just embraces, all the players on his team, and he kind of lets them be themselves and puts them in positions to be advantageous. And, Laviolette's a great coach, and he's taken 3 different teams to the Stanley Cup. I think he's the only guy to ever do that, with Carolina in 06, Philly in 2010, and Nashville last year. So he's a guy, where Turris, if you guys remember, early in his career, I think he was the 3rd overall pick. He didn't exactly get off to the strongest start ever with the Coyotes, and he got traded to Ottawa, and he kind of reinvigorated himself there. And I think he's a guy that needs to be let play to his strengths and stuff. And I think Laviolette's a great coach for that. So I'm fully confident that that's going to work out for Nashville, unfortunately, as a Hawks fan. But Dan, you had brought up Vegas, and maybe we could talk about them a little bit. They're down to their 4th goaltender. Fleury's hurt. Malcolm Subban's hurt, as we talked about last week. And then Oscar Danes got hurt. So now they're on Maxime Legacy. So Gallant's got the train rolling. So, boys, thoughts on the Golden Knights?
Real quick, actually, pause. Am I the only one that's hearing our voices echoed? Is
I
it
don't
doing
hear
it for
that.
you? Okay, it's just doing it for me then. Okay, never mind.
I heard it. I heard it.
Okay, it's doing it from my voice too, while I can hear myself, and then I can hear you, Nick. So
as long as we don't hear each other.
What time is
cool.
it, by the way?
Okay.
What time are we at?
Yeah, sorry. I just wasn't sure if we were all hearing it or not. It's 17 minutes, 21 seconds. Nick, what were you going to bring up?
Did you notice an echo when I was talking?
Yes. But I didn't know if the two of you heard it, so I didn't want to just interrupt. If it was just on my end, I didn't want to interrupt.
Do you want me to redo my part? I'm hearing an echo right now.
You are? Okay. I'm just worried it's going to come up on the, recording. I just wasn't sure if it was something to do with my mic or whatever.
Can you hear me? Am I echoing now?
Mm-hmm. So am I, though. Kevin, do you hear anything? You don't hear any echo?
No echo.
Okay. Then it's probably just something on my end.
Interesting.
Hang on.
I'm not hearing an echo now. Well, now I am. Oh, there you go. Is he leaving and coming back?
I wanted to see if me leaving.
Wait.
Oh, it's still echoing. Okay.
Hold up. All right, I thought I heard an echo, but
Okay.
All right. Shit. Where were
all right,
we?
what are we talking about?
I said something.
You're
about Vegas
talking about the Knights. You're like, go on,
We're on
the
the
train
Knights.
rolling.
Yeah, you said they're down to their
fourth
goalie. That's kind of what. Yeah, that's kind of what
All
you
right,
said.
give the time, and then whoever wants to go goes.
Okay.
You can start, Dan. I don't know. What to
It's 8:50 or 18:50, I should say. 18:50.
Okay.
All right, just talk about how they're on their 4th goalie. Is that what we're?
Yeah, or just like general thoughts.
You could just talk about the Vegas in
Okay.
general, saying how it's just incredible how they're still winning even though they're down there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
They're
I'll
finding ways
just
to win. Like
Okay.
they want to fucking, they fucking beat Ottawa and almost fucking beat the Rangers and shit.
Yeah, I just saw that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll just kind of start with that, just in general, and then Kevin, if you want to follow up. All right. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, with Vegas, it's just really interesting, Nick. Like you said, they've lost so many goalies. Fleury's out, Subban's out. Now they're down to their 4th goalie, and yet still somehow they're finding ways to win. They won last night against Ottawa, who obviously we've just been talking about. So it's not they've sort of proven themselves that they're not, kind of a fluky team. Even despite all these injuries, they're still able to get good goaltending, good defense. They're able to put the puck in the net. And I think it's just kind of what we were talking about, a week or two ago, whenever the last time we were talking about them. They're playing with just some sort of passion that, sometimes you don't see it all that often, and especially from kind of an unexpected source. I think, like we were saying last podcast, I don't think any of us expected them to be doing this well. I certainly did. I thought they would have been, kind of 500-ish at this point, especially considering Edmonton, who has been struggling, and then you got the Sharks and the Kings and the Ducks and whatnot. I just thought that they would kind of be average, but they're kind of proving everybody wrong right now. So it's, for me, I think it's really cool to see them have this success here in the first quarter of the season.
I think, though, I mean, this might be kind of obvious, but they're obviously going to regress a little bit because, you can only
go for sure. I think
you can only go so far with this lack of goaltending. Who is it now? It was Donsk and
Maxim Legacy.
Yeah, like that guy's not gonna, be able to lead you the whole season. I mean, obviously Fleury's coming back, but like, I don't know. Something tells me that they're pretenders because they're an expansion team. Like, there's no way they're actually good.
I have a nice little wager with a buddy of mine who's maybe not the biggest hockey fan in the world, but he's on the Golden Knights hype train. Excuse me, and I pretty much said I just didn't think they had enough offensive firepower to carry them. Like, they just don't really have that elite talent, up front right now, other than James Neal, I guess. And, I think that's going to catch up to him over the course of an 82-game season. But how about Shipshayev, guys? Just bolting the rush already? I mean, the guy faces a little fucking adversity and he's already gone. Like, what the hell's all that? What's that all about? We just got to go in on this guy. I mean, I'm not about just crapping on guys, but I mean, I'll say a few things about that first. I mean, Gallant's a coach that, he tries to get the most out of all the guys. He demands responsibility. You got to go 110% every shift. They try to get more with less. That's why they're playing so well right now as an expansion team. And he's more of a finesse guy, and he doesn't really play with a lot of grit and stuff like that. But obviously that's going on, and I hate to speculate, but obviously coming to America can be a bit of a challenge, and there's some, obviously some tragic stuff that went down in Vegas shortly after his arrival to the United States. So you got to wonder what was going on in his head. But, I mean, you're looking at this team, the money they gave him surrounding the franchise, and a team that could obviously use more goal scoring, and you'd think that'd be an opportunity for him to flourish. And he made a commitment to play there, but I think he barely even played there, maybe 2 or 3 games, and got sent down to their AHL affiliate, and he's already back in Russia. So maybe he just thought he could make some more rubles over there and play in the Olympics or something. But he's already gone. I don't know. Your guys' thoughts on that? That was kind of surprising. I mean, this team is just rolling, and then all of a sudden their prize signing of the offseason is gone, and you've seen the way that Dadonov, his teammate, his line mate from St. Petersburg, has been lighting up down there in Florida. Even though Florida kind of stinks, they give up 1 billion goals, but Dadonov's having a good year, and you can't help but think, could this guy be having similar success in Vegas if he just had his head and ass wired and had a better attitude?
Yeah, I think you nailed it with just the whole culture. I think of Vegas, it doesn't really kind of fit. You said get more with less, and that's, like we just said, that's certainly what they're doing. And I just think something about him doesn't jive with the culture of the Vegas Knights. I guess it could be hard coming to like you said, coming to America could be hard, but I think it's just kind of down to culture as well. And if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. But it's still it's kind of interesting, because like you said, it's their prized possession of the off season and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, I would say it's the culture thing. I really don't know otherwise. I don't know why else you wouldn't be successful. You have to work hard, regardless of what NHL team you're on. If you don't bring that, then obviously you're not going to have that success. And if you're if you're with a team where the culture doesn't, you don't necessarily agree with it, or you might have some problems with it, shit's going to hit the fan pretty quickly. So.
All right. First of all, let me say this for every listener out there. When the news broke that Shipshaev when he was going back to Russia, we had the news first. We were going to break the news. Didn't happen, but that was us. Secondly, I think one thing I just want to say is that's why, the contracts are designed like that for, international players. It's like, they can come overseas, go to training camp, and if they don't make the roster, they could send them back. There's a lot of risk involved in bringing over someone from Russia, for example. Like the Hawks, they did it with Panarin. It obviously turned out very well. But, yeah, I mean, especially when he comes into a pretty unique situation like Vegas with, being an expansion team, untested market, obviously the tragedy that happened. It's just, not really the perfect place for him to go, I would say. So, yeah, like you said, Nick, with an expansion team, you got to, get the most out of all your players. And, if Gallant didn't like him, then he didn't like him. I guess that's just, it was best for both parties that they just.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the thing with Ship too is it's not like he's a younger prospect. I think he's 30 years old already. He's kind of a seasoned player. So I don't know much about the dude's freaking personal life, but he's probably got a family or some shit like that. And if things weren't jiving, jiving in Vegas, it's easy to see why, he could be homesick or, want to be with his family, or, he can make similar money perhaps and still play in the Olympics. I mean, obviously it means a lot to those guys.
That's
you've seen how outspoken Ovechkin's been about playing for his homeland and stuff. But I mean, if you're maybe it was just he's homesick in general. Maybe it's not even Vegas, because I mean, if you're Vegas, what's the upside of just letting the dude go home? I'm sure they wanted to flip him for a pick or something if a team was willing to, take the gamble on him or something. I'm sure if there was a team out there willing to roll the dice, throw him a third or a fourth round pick, if Vegas would eat half the money. I mean, we've seen based on the expansion draft strategy that they had, from George McPhee and company, that they love to hoard assets. So why not just hoard another pick for the guy that, surprised, I'm sure they made an effort to trade him, but, maybe the guy is just like, what? I gave it a shot, and I'm not going to report to the Knights or anybody. So maybe it was just one of those things where Vegas had their hands tied. They couldn't trade him. He wouldn't play for him. So that's why he is back in Russia.
Well, it also must be that, it's probably prorated salary for how much time he played. So, it's not like that they have to eat the rest of that contract. I could be wrong, but maybe that's why they were so, free about just letting him go back to Russia. I could be wrong, but
of course, yeah. I mean,
would be the case.
He's basically I don't know the technicalities of it. I mean, we're not those kind of nerds, but I think he's on some kind of non-hot, they're some kind of suspended, terminated contract list or something like that, where his contract is essentially voided because he's failed, to report to the AHL team, and he kind of left. So,
yeah, that's a good point.
It's like a non-hockey, type deal. So,
probably some sort of technicality in there that got him off.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like the funny thing with Kovalchuk. Well, he was basically on the retired/terminated contract list or whatever it was because he retired from the NHL. So the Devils could get out of that contract, so he could just go over and just make a shit ton of money in Russia. So, I mean, with this guy, he's basically sacrificing the money because he knows he's one of the more decorated players from the KHL the past few years. So there's going to be no shortage of suitors for him over there. I haven't really checked in to see what's the next chapter of his hockey career, if he's going to just return to where he was before. But I mean, yeah, he's off the books for Vegas. But, I'm sure Vegas, if the taker wanted all $4 million of that deal, I'm sure they would have liked a pick or something. So I guarantee they looked into trading him. But
yeah, I mean, there's really no use in not trying to, like you said. Why would they want to, just let him go without at least trying to get whatever, a fourth or a fifth at the very least.
I think for sure they tried, but then I don't know, like the way my thought process is, the way I'm thinking of it is if, they would have tried to trade him, as a GM for whoever Vegas would have been talking to. The way I'm kind of thinking about it is, maybe he wouldn't have been desirable to those other teams because it's kind of like, well, here you get this guy in the offseason and now you're already trying to move him. Like, obviously, there seems to be some sort of a problem. So it's kind of like, why would I give up X player or, potential, I don't know, prospects or whatever? It's just, it to me, that would bring up a red flag as a GM of another team, as if you just got this guy and now you're already trying to move him. Obviously, there seems to be some sort of, a problem. Maybe it's, he's difficult to coach, or his work ethic is shit, or, it could be a whole slew of things that we don't know. So that's just kind of how I'm thinking of it from, another team's perspective.
I think it just would have been a good old-fashioned cap dump for a late-round pick if anything were ever to have gone down. It just would have been a GM in a desperate need of offense, rolling the dice who had a little cap space, or a team needing to get to the cap floor or something. Probably would have done something like that. But speaking of potentially adding offense, a team that could use some offense right now, surprisingly, probably one of the more shocking developments to begin the NHL season so far is Edmonton, boys. They have no secondary scoring right now. Just some initial thoughts as we move into that, and I'll let you guys share your thoughts. Just some initial thoughts I have are the Strom for Eberle trade is not exactly working out. It turns out Jordan Eberle was maybe a little underappreciated there, and he was a guy that he's a volume shooter, but, he put points on the board. Points on the stat line for them, and he was a guy that kind of gelled with their forward nucleus. But Strom had struggled in New York, and he's still struggling there. And Draisaitl was banged up with a concussion for a few games, but outside of McDavid and Draisaitl, they just really aren't getting a whole lot of offense. And Sekera's banged up, and Talbot hasn't been the best. But yeah, guys, Edmonton is just really laboring, and earlier yesterday, I guess we'll say, Detroit blanked them 4-0, at Rogers. So just pretty weird what's going on with Edmonton. I mean, this is a team that had some lofty aspirations. They're within a game. They're a game 7 away from going to the conference final last year in McDavid's first full season. Obviously, signing Draisaitl and McDavid to some pretty lucrative contracts in the offseason. I think they're going to be fine, but they got to go on a roll at some point, right? That division is looking pretty decent, I guess, with the way LA and Vegas are playing. And I think Kevin and I don't know about you, Dan, we're in the boat of Vegas possibly regressing. But, I think a lot of people –
I would be too.
Calgary's pretty good, and, this is a team that can't just sitting on their hands forever. Eventually they got to start lighting up the scoreboard like we expect them to, get some better goaltending, get healthy. But guys, what do you guys think's ailing the Oilers? What do you think's going on?
Well, you touched on the secondary scoring.
Oil leak.
You touched on the secondary scoring, and I think for me that's probably the most important thing. If you look at the success that the Hawks have had in the playoffs, years that they've won, especially over years that they've lost, a lot of times it comes down to secondary scoring. You had guys like Shaw, and Bickle in 13 was huge. Penguins have had Sheary and Rust, and the MBK line, so it's not just Crosby and Malkin doing all the work. And they definitely got a lot of secondary scoring last year in the playoffs as well. Pat Maroon was huge for them, cleaning up, those greasy goals and stuff like that. And right now, I think
really,
Cashin too. I was like, there's somebody else. Yeah. So I think, I think for me, secondary scoring is probably, probably the biggest asset you can have next to a guy like McDavid. Because, if your guys like McDavid aren't going, but your secondary scoring is going, then you can still, have the potential to be really, really successful. And I think they're just in a rut. I said it earlier in an earlier podcast, teams hit their ruts at various times in the year. I think Vegas is going to hit one for sure. And I would agree with both of you that they're going to regress. I think if Vegas gets in the playoffs, it's going to be like a wild card spot, to be honest. But I think Edmonton's is just coming now. The problem is, like you just said, you can't, kind of sit on your hands. They gotta get going at some point. Otherwise, they're going to get left way behind, and the season's going to be half over or whatever by the time they finally pick it up.
Yeah, and that's why they've been subject of plenty of trade rumors. In recent weeks, they've been tied to, I think, Max Pacioretty, because they just need scoring, whenever they can get it. Yeah, I mean, Nick's making a face right now, but they're desperate. I mean, they're not going to get they're not going to get much goal scoring out of Milan Lucic. So I think, I guess hindsight's 2020, and they could definitely use defense. It would be pretty nice to have a guy like Taylor Hall on the wing,
Yeah, but Ryan H is still fucking good, but they're just so top heavy. It's just after that they don't have any.
The deals that are like whatever I saw, it would be like a Pacioretty for Nugent Hopkins, or and then something built around that. Like, why would you do that, right?
That's bullshit. There's no way that's true.
Don't shoot the messenger, Nick. But
no,
that's just
that'd be stupid.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, it'd be really dumb.
Adam Larson's a great defenseman, but Taylor Hall, it'd be nice to have that guy right now. And Jordan Edwards,
and we can use that as a segue. Look at New Jersey right now. They are just getting some.
They're cooking.
They're cooking. They're cooking. Absolutely. They're on fire, those Devils.
Oh, stop it. I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming.
Yeah. But that team is playing real well, and they're getting some unlikely contributions. We touched on Will Butcher, I think, last episode, and his first couple games he had the board, and Jesper Bratt and Nico Hershiser, and they've got Palmieri, and obviously Taylor Hall has been really good, and Corey Schneider. Corey Schneider's a beast. He is so.
So is what's his name? Fucking Keith Kincaid. That's not a bad secondary option, right?
Yeah, he's an excellent. His
name cracks me up. I don't know why.
Kincaid.
Also, one thing I think we should note that I don't think we said it last week, but Brian Boyle back in.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's huge.
Cheers
that's
to the
awesome.
boiler. Cheers to the boiler.
That's a big momentum thing too. First off, I think it's really fucking awesome that he's back playing, because I love the guy. I loved him when he was with Tampa. I loved him when he was with the Rangers. Obviously, I love him now. I'm glad that he's back. But, just like in terms of, the presence in the locker room and everything, that's, a huge, kind of boost of morale and momentum for them. Like they're fucking killing it right now. They're fifth in the league, which, I don't know about you guys.
In a tough-ass division.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not like they're
division.
Yeah, it's not like they're playing Phoenix every damn night. They're playing some really, really good teams. And, sorry to rip on Phoenix, but, whatever.
I just love how we rip on
Arizona, man.
Oh, yeah.
The branding changes everything.
You know what? They were better when they were Phoenix, so I'm just going to go with that.
Oh, were they?
Well, they went to the Western Conference Final when they were Phoenix.
Yeah.
I guess you got me there.
They also couldn't get an owner, but
yeah.
And they had a shitty coach for the longest time too.
Oh yeah, you hate that man. You tip it.
The dude he was the only one that didn't get fired, and they were at the bottom of the barrel. Everybody else got fired last year except for him.
For a split second, I thought you were talking about Wayne Gretzky.
Ooh.
Oh no.
We pretend that didn't happen.
Yeah, that didn't exist. That was a bad part of Phoenix.
There was one time I think Wayne Gretzky was coaching Brett Hull there. It was just totally wild.
What do you even
I think Brett Hull literally ended his career with the Coyotes. He played like a handful of games, and then it was just kind of like Brodeur with the Blues. It was kind of like, dude, just like stop.
Or like Gretzky.
Dude, just stop.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, the Devils though. Shit. Corey Schneider. Are we all in on this guy? He's at least top 5 goalie in the league.
I loved him when he was on Vancouver.
Yeah.
The Devils just they don't play sexy. They don't win sexy. They don't have tons of elite frontline talent. Obviously Taylor Hall is one of the best left wingers in the game, but obviously getting Hershiser in there, and Bratt's been really good for them, and they've got guys like Henrique who've been there for a while who are pretty solid guys. So that's another team where, just how long can you keep it up? But shit, they're off to a damn good start. And that's a tough division for them. I mean, we remember how good that division was last year. The Metro. I mean, that's just an absolutely savage division with Columbus, Pittsburgh, and Washington. And, Rangers are now kind of regressing pretty hard. But, damn, it's just
Pittsburgh's another reason why I'm not looking into the slow start by Edmonton too much, because Pittsburgh stinks right now. They're getting just murdered.
Well, they just have these random ass games where they just give up a touchdown or some shit.
Yeah,
and the extra point is good. I think they've given up 7 goals, or the Hawks
they gave
up 10.
They gave up 7 too.
There's 3 games. Yeah. They got beat by the Lightning. They get beat by the Hawks. They lost to somebody else too, and it was they
gave up 7 to someone else.
Did you guys forget how to play defense or something?
Well, the Lightning game was where Crosby had the shit fit, right?
Yeah.
Yes, which was awesome.
We covered that last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Washington's also not off to that hot of a start. I'm pretty sure they're under 500 too. So I mean, it's early. There's so many. I think it just speaks to, honestly, the NHL in general. There's just so much parity across the league now. I mean, there's just
it's not a
nothing. No, it's not. It's just nothing is given now. I mean, hell, even the Coyotes won a game, so there's a lot of parity. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there is. That's why I love the NHL so much. Just the parity. It's good to be talking about the Devils. In the middle. They've. I mean, they've had some good seasons in the past, but a lot of times, they've just kind of been average or a little bit below average. So it's nice to see, kind of them back in the hunt at the beginning of the year, at least here. But, it's just, that's why I love hockey so much. Is just, just because you won a cup the last 2 years or whatever doesn't mean that you're going to come flying out of the gates. And, there's so many teams that we've been talking about that, Edmonton and Pittsburgh are, the 2 prime examples where you'd expect them to come flying out of the gates, and they're not. And then you've got a team like Vegas who's walking over everybody, it seems like sometimes. And I don't think anybody saw that. Same thing with the Devils. It's really, it's really awesome to see. In Tampa, they had a really, really subpar year last year, and now they're just ridiculous right now. So
you just wish the league would promote it better. Buffalo gets all these local home ratings, so NBC Sports Network throws on 1 million Buffalo games. They've been trash.
Yeah, what was
the
it?
last
There was
couple
one
years.
night when McDavid. It was Pittsburgh.
Crosby
Edmonton,
McDavid.
The national game was Detroit Buffalo.
Yeah, I remember.
Because
are you kidding me?
The way NBC Sports Network does it is
it's not like local.
A lot of the times, it's about local ratings, and I mean, if you've ever been to Buffalo, it's about all you've got over there.
All there is to do. Yeah.
It's the Bills and the Sabres. I mean, the town, they just fire up for those teams, and God love them. I mean, they're a great fan base, but I mean, if you're trying to, I mean, everyone knows mine and your guys' thoughts on the Olympics. It's just the best players in the league just aren't being showcased, and it's frustrating. Mm-hmm. And NHL, I feel like there's more talent than ever, and there's a lot of parity, and there's some really, really damn good players. And you're never going to get to watch Clayton Keller out in Arizona, and Austin Matthews hasn't shown enough in the United States. And I bet most people don't watch Mark Scheifele or Gaudreau or Monahan and Eichel. And they get to see Eichel. It's about it because it's on NBC Sports Network like literally every other game. So, McDavid, Draisaitl, list goes on and on. Like, no shit, Nick. There's a shit ton of good players in the NHL right now. But a lot of good young talent, but it just sucks that it's not being promoted well. But awesome to see the parity right now. And, the NHL is a year-to-year, month-by-month, week-by-week, game-by-game basis, man. And it's good to see.
All right, what are we going to talk about next?
All right.
What's
time?
Did I unmute myself? Yeah, I did. Okay. Should be like 44 minutes and 17 seconds.
It's not bad. You don't want it to go
what else is there to talk about?
Do like a wrap up, like a final thoughts wrap up thing.
Or do we want to do a little
45 minutes?
Do we want to do a little Hawks rant at the end?
I'm down, yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Do a little Hawks rant? All right. Let's do it. All right. Ready? All right. How should I?
Just like then to wrap it up, like let's just talk about the Hawks, man. Like, what's
Yeah.
going on?
All right. All right. 3, 2, 1. And then to wrap it up, boys, as a Chicago-based podcast, we would be remiss if we did not appreciate the goaltending, the net minding, the stonewalling of number 50, Corey Crawford. Got damn close to 3 straight shutouts. He went out 8.5 to 9 periods worth of shutout hockey, but he kind of got let down by his teammates against Montreal, who's kind of found a little bit of a boost themselves. They looked like a dead team walking, but then they went up back-to-back nights and beat Winnipeg and Chicago. But the Blackhawks, man, I mean, I don't want to panic about them. They're not having like the worst start ever, not their best start, obviously. Certainly, teams like Winnipeg and St. Louis are having a better start than them. But yikes, guys! That Connor Murphy for Hjalmarsson trade is that's oh man. I think you could. I'm not trying to like just bully the guy or like pick on one dude, but man, I think those 2 goals honestly could be attributed to him just not making very heady plays, don't you think?
And the second one for sure. The second one, he just gave him a goal.
Yeah, I mean, the Hawks in that trade, it's what's so interesting, and I mean, what are they, 15 games in? The thing is, you don't want to panic early, but Murphy was already signed to a deal, and Hjalmarsson was on one of the more team-friendly contracts in the entire NHL, and Murphy isn't giving him much offensively, which obviously Hjalmarsson is a stay-at-home guy, but Murphy seems like the same kind of quote-unquote stay-at-home guy who's not generating much on the blue line for them. He didn't save him much money. I think he literally saved them like maybe $100K on the cap or something, because I think Hjalmarsson was at 4 or 4.1. He's at like 3.8 or 3.9. So, a team like the Hawks, who are always at the cap ceiling, he made them younger, but I don't think that trade really made them better. And the Hawks don't have a lot of defensemen with good foot speed, and they don't generate a lot of offense off the blue line right now. And the forwards are, I think, going to be fine, but it seems like a lot of times they get in these habits of just kind of floating around the perimeter, and they just don't have a lot of guys that are willing to go in front of the net. I mean, it's Taves and Anisimov's found a couple goals lately, but I don't know, guys. What do you think about the Hawks right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, the trade upset me right when it happened. Hjalmarsson's been one of my favorite Hawks, especially out of the core guys, obviously, and he's just an absolute workhorse. He plays consistently night in, night out, and kind of flies under the radar to the average fan because, his role is not a glamorous one. He blocks shots, he hits, sure, he scores every now and then, and he's had some really big goals in his career, obviously, too. But, I was really disappointed to see him go, and it just doesn't seem like, Murphy's been able to kind of pick up the mantle, I guess you could say. And they're really, really hurting. I think, Nick, like you said, as the forwards, I think the forwards are going to be fine. It happens with scoring. Sometimes you get bad puck luck. Some nights you're snake bit, yada, yada, yada. So, but yeah, I think right now the Hawks are definitely missing. I mean, there's been countless, the 2 goals we were talking about tonight. There are a couple instances against the Flyers where it was like the defense fell asleep at the wheel, and I think it was in the first period of the Flyers game. They had like 2 breakaways and like 1 or 2 like really glaringly bad like 2-on-1s or 3-on-1s, and it was like I think a couple times it was Murphy getting caught asleep, and it was just like the forward just skated right past him, and it was no big deal. So, I think as a whole they have to step it up a little bit. The defensive core, you can rely obviously on, you can lean on Seabrook and Keith for that, but I think they are also really missing, the hammer.
Yeah, I think to switch more onto the offensive side of things or the forwards, one thing that does concern me is, like, I think this might go without saying, but the trades made, especially for getting Saad, I feel like Stam wanted to just get a little more stability in his top 6 forwards. And, there's been, while minor, there's still been some shuffling in the lines. So that kind of has me concerned because especially with a young guy like DeBrincat, if you're switching him up, put him in a
Dude, that's the blunder. You knew it was going to happen no matter what. That's just Quenneville.
Either exactly like on that second line, that's just really finesse driven, especially with Kane. And then when you put him on the first line, which is all these big bodies with, Panic and Taves, like he just does not belong there at all. So I don't want to say it's going to hinder his development because I don't think it should, but it's probably not the best thing for him.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they could just use another, like, I know it's just going to be like all these hockey cliches, but they just need a guy who's willing to take an elbow, go to the greasy areas. Like, they just hang around the perimeter so much. And I know the idea with Anisimov playing with Kane is that he's like the space creator, but he just doesn't have like the hands to play with a guy like Kane anymore. Like he was fire right when he got out of he was just hot right out of the gates when they first made that trade. Obviously when they traded Saad and got Anisimov back, but yeah, it's just tough. I think I would kill for the Hawks to have a guy like Wayne Simmons or something. I don't know if that's going to ever be possible, but they just need a guy that can, huh?
I doubt it, but go on.
I doubt it too, but a man can dream. It's just, I don't know. I like a lot of the forwards. I mean, you look at it on paper and you've got Taves, Saad, Kane, Panic, Schmaltz, DeBrincat. I mean, you got a good fourth line. You got depth guys like Hartman and Hayden and stuff like that. And they've just kind of hit a rut offensively right now. I think there's a trend in the league too. Like obviously their power play sucks again. And that those who followed the Blackhawks closely the past few years, the power play is a major issue. The entries are interesting. They are a finesse team. They're so stubborn in that regard. They refuse to hammer the puck in and go get it. They don't have a single defenseman that can drift the puck accurately. Even a guy like Duncan Keith just hammers it into the forward shin pads every time. They just don't have a good quarterback on the power play. And you look at the elite power plays across the league, they all have an elite power play QB. You've got Letang in Pittsburgh. You've got Pietrangelo, Doughty, Burns, Carlson. And obviously those are some of the elite defensemen in the game, but the Hawks don't even have a guy that can replicate anything close to that off the back end. And when you combine that with a lack of a net front presence, you're just going to get a shit power play. And the Hawks, they're fast and they're a little tougher and play with a little more sand than in years past, but they're not getting a lot of 5-on-5 goals, and that's glaring. They haven't gotten 5-on-5 goals lately, and that's glaring when the power play is just kind of stinking it up. I think they're 27th in the league right now, last I saw. So that's pretty unacceptable when you look at their forward core.
Yeah, and there was one power play tonight where Kane and Cody Franzen were just tossing the puck back and forth. I'm like,
why is Cody Franzen on the fucking power play? The guy was a fucking training camp invite like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't know. That's also like we were talking about this off air, but I think that's kind of an issue with their power plays. They're just being a little too hesitant, not getting enough chances. Like there's one power play, I think it was maybe their first one. They're probably in Montreal's zone for 90% of the power play, and they only got 2 shots off. And I guess, like Nick, you said that you could attribute that to a lack of a net front presence to kind of, pick up the trash around the net. But I think they're not doing themselves any favors by just kind of being a little too fancy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's good to be. Go ahead, finish.
I was gonna say, especially when one of the guys out there on the ice is Cody Franzen.
Yeah,
I don't think you're gonna get too much finesse out of him.
I think when with their part, you don't want to force anything. You don't want to make passes that aren't there. You don't want to do anything stupid like that. But I think they're kind of on the other end of the scale. Like Nick, you said, they're stubborn. And there's a fine line, I think, between like a good stubborn and picking, good shot selection, all that. And then there's kind of the Hawks where it's almost like, I don't know, sometimes you got like a wide open shot and you choose to pass it instead. Actually, another example again would be the Flyers game. I can't remember. I think it was like Schmaltz had it, and it was like, all three of us everybody and their mother would have shot it because he was right in front of the net. He was just off the slot and he made a pass and it actually almost ended up going in the net because it hit a Flyer skate and then it hit the post. But it was just one of those where it's like, why are you not just getting that on net. You know,
what about the panic one against Minnesota where he did like that half spinorama instead of just like trying to roof a backhand?
Exactly.
Or something? What are you doing?
It's either too much finesse or it's stubborn to a you know, a bad degree. It's too stubborn, is what I'm trying to say. And I don't know what it is, but it's seriously, it's like the last 3 years with the power play has just been absolutely fucking brutal.
Yeah.
And I
don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And they've
I
made
think
coaching changes. I mean,
yeah,
assistants have been kind of fluctuating, you know,
I think
a little bit.
I think at some point with how badly their power play has been, you just got to be like, you know what, fuck it, just get the puck on the net. And you know, at some point, I think you just have to simplify and you know, just treat it like a playoff game and just fire absolutely everything at the net. And then once you start scoring a little bit more, that gets your confidence up, and then that's when you can start making the really nice tic-tac-toe plays that we've, you know, grown accustomed to, especially the last 10 years with, you know, with this core. So I think they need to get back to basics.
In the Montreal game, I saw a stat. They got 38 of 69 shot attempts through. And you can attribute that to defensemen that can't hit the broadside of a barn with a fucking shot. And skill forwards just playing too cute and hanging out on the perimeter. And when you are struggling to score, you have to try to force the issue. And you have to just force things at the net. Good things happen when you get shots on net. I think the biggest thing that's the problem for the Hawks, just offensively, and when they get in these ruts, is it seems like everything's just one and done. Like they don't get these follow-up opportunities. They don't have the sustained offensive zone time. It's, you know, they come in off the rush, they get a shot, guy gets bodied in the corner, or they have a shit entry or something, or it's a point shot goes 8 feet wide and it's cleared or something. It's just all these. They're not really peppering any goalies, and they're not getting multiple chances or follow-up opportunities. And I just think it's like the lack of sustained zone time and they're just in a slump right now. But yeah, Q will just keep riding the blender until it spits out something that works.
Yeah, hopefully. Apparently he had them stay after practice. I think this was like maybe late last week. He just had them skating for like a half hour.
Yeah, the laps.
Practice. Yeah, they're skating laps. I don't know if that's even a thing at the NHL level. never been to an NHL practice. Never been a member.
Q channeling his inner Herb Brooks there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, you think you're going home just because the fucking arena lights are off? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but yeah, basically the Hawks played the role of Montreal the past couple wins before tonight, where, you know, they had no business winning a couple of those games, and they just got this elite goaltending that propelled them to victory. And in a game where, you know, you have a couple defensive collapses by cough, Connor Murphy, you know, your offense, when you have a goose egg, you know, it just shows that they're going through a bit of a rut right now. But I think they'll be okay, and as will Edmonton, and as will Washington and Pittsburgh, and on and on and on. So, boys, thank you for joining me this week. I also want to throw out one quick shout-out to longtime NHL referee Kerry Frazier, 65 years old, longtime vet of the league. He got diagnosed with incurable cancer, obviously a staple of the league. And you've probably, you know, if you're a big-time hockey fan, you've seen him officiate tons of games. And we wish him and his family nothing but the best, and definitely want to just send a quick shout out his way and everything he's done for the game. And you know, referees do a good job if you don't know who they are, but if you've been following the hockey community for a while, you certainly know who he is and how he was one of the better refs in the game. So before we left, I just want to send a quick shout out his way. So, boys, thanks again for joining me.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's fun as usual.
Right. And that's all she wrote.